You are now watching Decklist PTCG. Let's get it! Yo, what's poppin' YouTube? Decklist here. Hopefully everyone's doing well today. I'm a little tired myself. I'm adjusting to a new schedule, but that's all good. I'm coming off of my first unofficial online Pokemon win. I mean, that might sound crazy. I won the Players' Cup. I have not been able to win an online event. A handful of seconds, top 4s, top 8s. Top 16, stuff like that. But I did get my first online win last night with Eternatus Spiritomb Big Charm. So a little bit of a new list. So the goal of this video here is to kind of showcase you what this new list can do. Just explaining it, showing the list, explaining some of the card changes between a normal Eternatus list, going over the matchups that I faced in that tournament, explaining kind of my run to the top, and then I actually have my finals gameplay footage. So it should be a great video altogether. If you want to play this deck or any other deck, go to PTCGO plug in code ZELASAGE5. Again, that's in the description below, and you can save 5% on your next order of PTCGO codes. All play is online, so I mean, you know it's a good deal. But let's jump into that deck and see exactly what's poppin'. So here we have the deck list, Eternatus VMAX and all. Eternatus VMAX is based around using Eternal Zone, and I don't want to go too far into this because I have covered this deck a few times on the channel before, but I'll give you a few, like, just rundown if you've never played Eternatus before. Focuses on Eternal Zone, allows you to have up to 8 bench Pokemon, all dark Pokemon. All the Pokemon in this deck are dark type, and then Dread End doing 30 for each Pokemon, maxing out at 270 damage. Now, the event that I won had ADP bans. A few online tournaments are doing it. I don't necessarily agree with the ban. I don't think it really changes much, but I did make the change of just including a few less Zigzagoon at only 1. I never really got punished for this, although I do think the deck probably needs 2. 2s to me seems like the fair number. With more single prize card attackers anticipated in an ADP less events, Spiritomb really came to my mind of being the best card to include in this deck. Along the way, I did face quite a few single prize card decks, and I think Spiritomb put in a lot of work here. Yveltal is just really there for the free retreat, Crobat to draw cards. Obviously, you need something to evolve into Eternatus VMAX, but this card does allow us to use Power Accelerator. Now, the bigger thing that I included, if anything, is Big Charm. Big Charm is great on Eternatus VMAX, giving it 370 HP, allowing Scourge to having to get that extra energy than what it would normally have to have, and a lot of other decks just can't get that extra oomph. So a lot of my opponents just weren't prepared for Big Charm. There's a lot of times that an Eternatus VMAX that otherwise would have got knocked out did not get knocked out, so Big Charm was MVP. It's also really good with Spiritomb, so I really like the 4 Spiritomb, 2 Big Charm, Eternatus combo. I think that's quite strong. Bosss Orders, I mean, I only went with 3 copies, 3 of the great new copies of the Lysander Bosss Orders. A lot of players have been asking me, where can you get these? I just got these on public trades. I think they come from the Blastoise V and Venusaur V decks. So check those out. Everything else here is fairly standard for an Eternatus list. It's one of those things where Eternatus is just a powerful deck. The core of the deck's very similar across the board. Like, you're going to see the Marnies, you're going to see the Research, you're going to see the Great Balls, the Quick Balls, things like that. So really not too much of a change. Crushing Hammer is still very valuable because in case you run into Eternatus Mirror, you just need to pack these. If you don't and your opponent does, you're probably going to lose that game, or you need to hope your opponent is very unlucky. I think that this version of the deck's really good. If I were playing in an event that does have ADP, I'd probably cut a Spiritomb for a Zigzagoon, and I'd try to find a spot for another Bosss Orders, and I'd like to find a spot for a Darkness or a Dangerous Drill. Those are really the changes that I'd like to make, but again, I'm not sure. I think Zigzagoon, maybe going lower on Spiritomb, maybe adding in Dangerous Drill, maybe adding in another Bosss Orders. But for now, I think that this list is very good, and it has a lot of answers to our current metagame. So let's jump into my matchups, see exactly. I'll explain everything quickly, and then we'll jump into my finals footage. So going through my matchups, I was able to go undefeated throughout Swiss, winning 5 games and going a tie, and then winning every game in the top cut. So going 8-0-1, which is a really strong record with the deck against a wide range of matchups. So round 1, I found myself playing against Seeking. Now, for those of you who don't know what Seeking does, Seeking flips 3 coins and removes energies. This being said, I used Spiritomb against that matchup, built up damage counters because my opponent's deck does not really do a great job at building up damage counters, and I was able to just attack with Spiritomb. I don't even think I used Eternatus in the whole game. My opponent didn't really pivot their strategy, and they really went for the attack that kept on removing energies, with Spiritomb only having 1 energy requirement, and my own opponent only playing Glimwood Tangle, no Wondrous Lab. There really wasn't much of an issue for me to get around. Round 2, I played against Crucephalon, or Baby Blacephalon with Cramorant and Reshiram and Charizard. I think I just got a bit of a better start than my opponent. Maybe my opponent made a few questionable plays, or had a few, like, sometimes blinds against awkward hands, so it happens. I think the matchup's slightly favored for Eternatus if Eternatus is able to go second and does not miss on the power accelerator. That seems to me to be the best thing, and then if you get, like, appropriate hands after that. Then I beat Jonathan Patricio. They were playing Decigoons. I went first, attached an energy to an Eternatus. They went Rowlet Pass, and then I evolved into an Eternatus VMAX and was able to win the game. Again, with all the Spiritombs and Big Charms, it felt like it could be an okay matchup. I'm not sure. Then in my kind of winning in to be able to double ID, I played against Centiskorch. I was able to get off a pretty quick start. My opponent, I think, overextended on one single Centiskorch, and that kind of led to their downfall in the game. Big Charm seemed to be good for me as well. If I remember correctly, my opponent just could not knock out my Eternatus VMAX one turn. But again, when you play this many games of Pokemon, things can get a little bit fuzzy. I offered my opponent an ID in round 5 because we'd both be guaranteed top cut. My opponent declined. They wanted to play it out. I have no reason why. Usually when you're in a secured spot and you're able to do the math and determine that you just can't, if you can make it or can't make it, that's the only time when you want to really decide. Otherwise, it's better to just kind of take a break and chill out. At this point, I just wanted to play a little bit of Fortnite with my friend Logan. So my opponent saying no is a bit of a surprise. I felt like it's a very favorable matchup for me because they only play the 1 copy of Team Yellgrunt in their Pikarom deck. So my opponent playing the 1 copy, I was able to just beat them fairly normally. I got a pretty rough start as far as I can remember, but it's still just a favorable matchup. Against Jeremy did accept my ID, so going into cut 5-0-1 first seed, and then I found myself playing against a Cinderace deck. Now the weird thing about the Cinderace deck is they played 2 copies of Minccino, no Cinccino. I even asked them in the chat, I was like, did you forget to add Cinccino? And they're like, no, it's for math to do 30 damage. Not sure about that one. They did beat a few legitimate decks, but the Cinderace that they played was the Cinderace Stage 2, which seems like it can fly in this kind of metagame with ADP being banned. However, I found that the Cinderace deck is a little bit difficult to get off. That my opponent was discarding a lot of rare candies, and even though I had multiple poor starts in the 2 games, I guess 2 poor starts back to back, I was able to barely beat my opponents. Against Arne in the top 4, playing Crucephalon, I got some really poor starts going back and forth, but ultimately my deck was able to kind of overcome those mid-game, game 2, game 1 being an absolute, just like me missing, like I was just always like short 1 Pokemon or just like draw pass for half the game. Game 2 felt very similar. I literally remember even looking at Michelle Babin, who I live with. She's my girlfriend. And I was like, yep, gonna lose in top 4. Let's go to Walmart, right? But I was able to kind of pull out a strong turn, getting a few things that I needed and kind of pivot my way back. Game 3, my opponent had a very poor start, and I was able to move on to the finals. And you'll see the finals match here, so I don't want to spoil it. The games went not as expected. So we'll see exactly how it goes there. But yeah, let's jump into this finals footage. Hopefully you're excited to see it. I've just been trying to do as much cool things on the channel, and I think having finals footage from this event is awesome. All right, let's jump into it. So going into this finals match, I was super hyped to be playing against Pikarom. I think this is actually the same Pikarom deck that I played against earlier on in the event. But starting with triple Eternatus VMAX and 2 Bosses Orders and a Research is just bad. My opponent's giving me a frown face. If only they saw my hand. At this point, I'm like, you want to know what? If I don't do something, I gotta kind of just like vibe out here, get some Pokemon set up. So even though I only have access to 1 Eternatus VMAX, or one might be prized, I don't even know at this point. It's just one of those things where being able to just get set up, maybe overwhelm my opponent here, is just super strong. So there's a Power Accelerator, and we'll see exactly what my opponent does here. Crushing Hammer obviously hurts. There's a Crushing Hammer heads, and that's one of the biggest things where, as much as I say this is a favorable matchup, if my opponent could get a few Crushing Hammer heads, that's rough. Speaking about rough starts, have you seen mine? I'm forced here to go Marnie. I just can't draw past forever, right? Because there's a good chance my opponent in the next 4 or 5 turns anyways would just naturally win the game. For me, I'm like, cool, I have nothing. I have no energy. I gave my opponent a better hand. If anything, this seems like I'm going to a game 2 ASAP. But that's okay. It was untimed as far as I'm concerned. Best of 3. So let's play it out. Crazier things have happened, right? Pikarom doesn't necessarily do a lot of damage against Eternatus. Considering I know what I'm doing with Pikarom to a much higher level than most, I figured I might be able to use that knowledge to kind of jump back into the game. There, reasonably, I think I made the mistake of just grabbing a Crobat. There's an argument to be said that I'm putting at the bottom of my deck with Marnie, but I probably should have just played Research, not grabbing it unless I just grabbed the Eternatus VMAX. So Crushing Hammer, nothing's going on there. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just build up onto my Eternatus VMAX. Let's see what's popping. I'm just going through to make sure that I didn't play a Crobat. So, yeah, there's the Crobat, gonna pitch the entire hands. Still can't find my single Eternatus VMAX, but that's okay. Sometimes you just struggle to get it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's just attach the energy. You can see my opponent starts not very quick here either, so that's something that's very much helping me out. Okay, there's that Marnie. And I mean, I'm completely fine with the Marnie. My hand is nothing here. And my opponent getting another heads on Crushing Hammers. So if you could speak about like a really unlucky scenario, this would definitely be one. But I'm able to just build up my Spiritombs on the bench. And my whole thought process was, well, even if Eternatus VMAX doesn't necessarily go the distance, maybe Spiritombs can go the distance. My opponent currently has just no outs at all to my Spiritombs. There's no Zigzagoons. They're not going to Tag Bolt GX them. So it should be pretty favorable for me if I can just build my Spiritombs up at a certain point. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just go Power Accelerator. At this point, I don't see any reason why not to build up a Spiritomb. Maybe I could just start attacking with Spiritomb. I don't know, maybe reasonably I should have attached the Eternatus V, but I figured with them having 3 Crushing Hammers down, or maybe 4 at this point, it's one of those things where I didn't necessarily have to worry about it as much as I normally would. There's the full Blitz, and there's the Mewtwo powered up. So I'm just going to try to see exactly what's going on here. I'm just going to research. And there's the Eternatus VMAX, and I'm powering up the one on the bench because it does have more HP than the one in the active. I want this Pokemon to survive some attacks. Now, in terms of it, again, just going with my Spiritomb strategy, I'm going to switch. I'm going to get some Pokemon out. And here, I always want to leave a bench space open. I don't need the damage for the knockout. I don't need damage for like a 2-hit or anything. I just wanted the bench space. I'm getting the knockout. Should be great. So, kind of jumping back from like a losing position with me having those triple Eternatus VMAXs in there. And you can see I'm just like, I'm just so appalled that the triple Eternatus VMAXs are in there. I'm just like, okay, cool. So my opponent going in there with the Mewtwo and Mew GX. The Big Charm's going to stop them for sure. I can't go 300 damage. I don't play Dangerous Drill. This is one of the reasons why Dangerous Drill would be very good in this deck. I might as well just try to protect that Eternatus. could build up another tomb. I can always use Building Spites, and I'm going to attack into the Mewtwo. So this is really where the game, I don't want to click Building Spite by accident. And here's really where my opponent just really can't attack with Mewtwo for the rest of the game, because all of my Spiritombs can basically knock it out. They don't have a current way to heal. The best move that they could do is to Deny GX to bounce it back, but then at that point, then my Eternatus could probably just finish off the game. Of course, they're going to get their 4th Crushing Hammer heads or 3rd Crushing Hammer heads, however many they've played. It really simply doesn't matter. There's the Marnie taking away my win con with the Boss's Orders, but my hand seems kind of fine. Let's see exactly what they can do. And I mean, I remember playing this in the moment. I thought my play was pretty cool. So they're going to use Bolton to try to pass because that gives them an extra turn. And I'm like counting the cards in my deck. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just going through to make sure that I could properly draw. Because even though my opponent Marnied, I know I had the Bosss Orders in the deck. I just want to go double check. I need to look into my deck. There's the Bosss Orders. There's some energies. So I'm just going to put a card back. I'm going to grab another card. I'm going to bench the E-turn. I'm going to actually pop my own Spiritomb, giving my opponent up a prize card. But you can see I have 6 cards left in my deck. And I'm going to Crobat for 6. And there's the Spiritomb Anguish Cry for me to win game 1. So going into this, my opponent's going to go second, as most Pika-ROM decks want to. And that's fine. I'm fine going first and just swinging hard. I don't know why I said good luck this game. It's oddly written. I was pretty tired at that point. And I'm like, cool, let's start with Spiritomb. My hand's like not bad. I just really need to find an energy if that's a possibility. So I'm going to go Quick Ball goes first. I discarded the Pokemon Communication. I probably should have discarded the Switch just in case. At this point, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to discard the Research because I'm going to go in with Crobat. I'm just checking through my prize cards and discarding a Switch, and I'm going to get another E-turn because you want to have double E-turn in this matchup. I was like debating playing the Switch, but I decided I want to save it just because of Tandem Shock. There's the Dark Energy, and I'm going to go ahead here and pass. So, I mean, it sucks that I have the Dark Energy, that I was not able to go second and go Power Accelerator because that's really how this matchup goes. But I can often overwhelm my opponents. And here it's a difficult choice to go forward with it. I mean, I'm just like, do I want to evolve? Do I want to go Power Accelerator this turn? And at this point, I'm like, yeah, you want to what? I think I'm just going to go for the knockout and just kind of roll my opponent. They might not be able to Tandem Shock me. My opponent only plays 1 copy of Yell Grunt. They need to get double Crushing Hammer heads to really get it off, because getting their single Yell Grunt would be quite difficult for them. So there's the Dark Energy. There's the Crobats. And I'm like, cool. I'm like 1 Pokemon off from knocking out their Raichu, Alolan Raichu, which would have been absolutely amazing. But at this point, I'm just vibing out. I'm going to keep the Eternatus V on my bench. I think I'm just going to leave it for Power Accelerator plays going forward. And that's fine. You always want to keep your options open. So now, like, my whole thing was, like, my opponent needs to get switched to literally have a chance at winning this game. There's their switch. They got it. And let's see what I can do here. I don't really see an issue with me just, like, pitching my hand away. There's a big charm, big charm. Let's try to play. I'm going to try to thin out everything that I got going on here. And there's a switch. So I've just left my opponent in a position where they don't have much going on. They did not find their Crushing Hammer cards. That's really the only card that carries them in this matchup. And reasonably, I'm leaving my opponent with, like, nothing. They need to get, like, Crushing Hammer heads in order to win the game. They did get a Bosss Orders, that's fine. I'm just going to attach the Dark to the active, just so in case I could ever attack with an Eternatus VMAX, no energy at all there, and I'm just going to pass. Not pass, use Power Accelerator, because it doesn't matter. and see exactly what they can do this turn. My opponent's gonna have to struggle, and I have 4 energies on board. So I'm just gonna try to thin my deck out as much as possible, getting a Pokemon Communication, getting that back. I mean, I'm gonna hold on to the Quick Ball in case my opponent does get another stamp or anything like that, but I'm able to just complete this game as easily 3 turns, 4 turns total. And this is the power of Eternatus for sure. So, I mean, overall, I can't complain about that event. Game 2 went smashingly well. There's no other way to put it. Like, that game just went extremely well for me, so I have no complaints about that. It's super cool being able to win my event. I mean, you might be like, yo, Zach, you probably don't care about events like this. I mean, I'm a normal person too, right? Like, you got to think, like, I play in these events, I'm trying to do my best, and I think it allows for some great YouTube content. So, kind of hope that that shows, like, the power of the Spiritomb in the deck. I don't think Big Charm is really showcased well in those particular games, because the matchup is such a blowout as long as I just kind of set up. But it's one of those things where I'm just happy to be able to just show some awesome footage for the YouTube channel, show you how the deck works, and I mean, maybe I'll give the deck a try out. I don't think the deck's perfect or anything like that. I think the Big Charm idea is very good. I'm not the person who invented Big Charm, I can't even tell you who did, but probably going to be an advocate for it going forward. I think it's really good in the deck, but we'll see how it goes. The only event that I'm playing in this week, I think, is like chill. I got a lot of Players Cup keys to go through, so that's going to take a lot of my spare time. Maybe I'll even put some of that on the channel. I know a lot of you have been requesting it. We'll see what I get up to. Still lots of content and great stuff on its way. That being said, I do have to go to create some more content. So have yourself a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Again, thanks for all the support, everyone. Have yourself a great one. Peace out. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. If you haven't already, it'd mean the world to me if you could subscribe to help support me as a content creator. Thanks again, and have yourself a great one.